All right, let's get into this. Hey Nico, how's it going? Have you been experimenting with the remote camera action? I know you messaged me about what I do to get some remotes going. Now's the time to begin practicing that stuff. It's wedding and event season. Well, I've been kind of gung-ho on wildlife lately. That really keeps my skill level sharp, my reaction time sharp, follow focus, timing for moments. It keeps me very sharp in preparation for weddings and events, which are coming up. I'm so excited. Although I haven't been vaccinated yet, things are popping, things are opening. We got lots of inquiries for weddings. We have weddings that are moving forward at their full-blown real wedding numbers. Hey John, how's it going? How did your headshot session go? I saw you were doing some free headshots somewhere. Looks good. Had a nice setup. I like the highlighter and the big rapid box. It's one of my go-to light modifiers because, as you know, everything I do is on location. So that's what we're going to talk about. Getting quick, getting your lighting down so that when it's time for the events to start happening, you're prepared. Right? We don't want to be practicing on the event day. It's time to start shaking off the rust and cobwebs. Hey Jay, what's going on? How are you? How have you been? Long time no chat. Hope things are doing well in your neck of the woods. What's everybody been up to? I see John's feed a lot, but you know, with Facebook and the algorithms, we don't always get to see, you know, each other's feeds, and you've got to purposely go and click around to see those happening. So I'll give it a couple minutes here. What I thought I would do is run through a few of the past photographs, lighting setups with lighting diagrams that I have as a refresher. You know, it's time to really start getting back into the swing of things. Packing your gear up, making sure everything's working, making sure your image sensors are clean. Do a hard format on all of your memory cards so you get no hang-ups. And what I mean by a hard format is use a disk utility on your computer and fully erase the card and then reformat it in camera. That gets rid of all the junk because, as you know, even though you format your memory cards in camera, you can recover everything that's on there because the way data works is it kind of lays down a nice clean base layer. And all those previous files and images are there until they are written over. So with a hard erase program, a disk utility, you're going to write ones and zeros over that and give it a clean slate. So it's like factory fresh. This eliminates any possibility for corruption moving forward. And the last thing you want to deal with are those kind of headaches as your shoots start happening, be it portraits, corporates, events, weddings, whatever the case may be. Let's get prepared. Hey, thanks. Yeah, Westcott, Team Westcott, go Team Westcott. So let's kind of jump into this. I'm gonna kind of watch out for the puppy, he's down here. So what I'm gonna do is I got the overhead camera set up. Let's go really wide on this lens. So you can see everything. Overhead camera, we're gonna project down. And what we're gonna talk about is lighting and lighting fast. My go-to tool of choice are Speedlites. I love that everything is now wireless. I particularly love Canon's Speedlites. Godox and everybody else has kind of mimicked their user interface and the ability to have independent groups. And independent groups is really key, meaning each group, A, B, C, D, and E, is independent of each other, and each group can be turned on, off, or the modes changed from manual to TTL. That's key. One of the things that's a challenge with the ProPhoto line, and I know I've talked about this before, is with the A1s, which I have. I happen to have all the lighting because I use them and want to make sure we're using the best tool for the job to accomplish my vision and to accomplish it efficiently and fast. So what the A1s do is the first three groups, A, B, and C, are linked, meaning they are either all TTL or they are all manual. And while you can see group D and access it, it's always and forever in manual, right? You can fire groups E and F, but in no way can you access them to turn the power up, down, change the mode, turn them on and off, things of that nature. ProPhoto's solution is, hey, use the Bluetooth app. It's really not practical. I tried it at a wedding or an event. You know, my rooms are pretty big, 75 feet wide, 50 feet wide, 100, 150 feet deep. The Bluetooth is just too short a range. And by the time I get close to link it up, the situation that I'm trying to photograph has changed. And I'm constantly changing the lighting on the fly. So I love the interface of the Canons. I love the interface of Westcott's. Godox has mimicked it, all of them. And what I mean by that is we have these sender units that are independent groups, A, B, C, D, and E, and you could access those. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm trying to drive that home, how important independent groups are. So this is kind of a typical setup that I use for small details, accent lighting, in the room when they're getting ready, is I'll use a Platypod Ultra because I could set this thing on a table, in a space. Now this light can illuminate in 360 degrees and give me some specularity, give me some light from the side. So let me just pop over here, see if anybody's got any questions. No? Okay, cool. I love the mag spheres for my general lighting because they're quick. I could stack grids, I could put the sphere on there, the light goes out 360 degrees, it's diffused, we could add gels, so it's quick. The Canon EL1 Speedlite is something I've been wanting for a long time. We now have a modeling light, so it's dual color temperature between tungsten and daylight, so I could do that. It now also has a lithium-ion battery, so the recycle time is near instantaneous and insane, and the battery life is solid and good. The connectivity seems to be improved. The flash output is the same, but the flash head compared to the 600 XRTs is larger because we do have a fan in here, there's a new flash tube, there's a new reflector, so the quality of light at the base output is improved. So it's a nice upgrade all the way around. It still has all the ports, which is a good thing, meaning a PC sync. ProPhotos don't have that, so if you needed to plug a hard line in, you could. And we still have the external battery pack if you're going to have them off camera in extended use, which I would use at a reception. The Platypod Ultra with a little Benro ball head is really handy. We can grip this anywhere, position it, put it on a light stand. You know, it's kind of like the Swiss Army knife of grip gear. Hey, Dawn Davis, I love you, honey. Say hi to Auntie Sherry. Hope you're doing well there. Dawn's visiting Dawn's sister in the hospital, so could use some prayers from you guys out there that Sherry makes a full recovery. So, you know, I know family in these trying times, so positive energy all the way around. Dawn and I try and pour into our community, and, you know, we feel that reciprocation. All right, so let's switch over to the overhead camera and start here. This is the basis of everything, right? The triangle of light. There really is not ever a good time to not use the triangle of light. And what I mean by that is you could use the triangle of light at a wedding reception, you could use the triangle of light at a portrait session, you could use the triangle of light outside, you can use it inside. It's just fantastic. And basically, the concept of this is 3-point portrait lighting. So at any point in time, because we have these in independent groups, we can change it up and make one the main, one the fill, one the hair light, one the kicker, or all the lights even, just to give nice, beautiful illumination. So let's kind of dive into this a little bit and lay the foundation, right? So when we set up a room, this is a big room, and I'll get to an overhead of this. This is the standard club, so it's anywhere from 50, 60 feet wide, 150, 175 feet, 200 feet deep. It's a big room. We have 3 flashes that are in the room and they're there for both the ceremony, and then they will stay in that same position for our reception. And here's where the independent groups comes in. Really key. So for this photograph, we're using the 1DX, and I always kind of come in here and check live view to get the tone of the room. What's our overall exposure, and what's our overall color tone of the room? And then I match that with my off-camera speedlights. So this room is kind of dark, heavy wood floor, absorbs light, a little bit of uplighting, candles, so everything is tungsten. So we put full correct to orange gels over the speedlight so that the color temperature of the off-camera splashes match that of the room. So we don't get, you know, a bright white foreground and then an orange background. So everything blends, right? So here we go. This would be the D light as we have here, D group, right? And I'm going direct, and the reason that I go direct, this is the B light, is because if we could bounce in this situation, it's a big room, A, it uses a lot of energy from the flash and it won't recycle. B, we lose all the specularity, right? And it just envelops the room in light and big, soft, diffused light. I like directionality because it defines the shape and it adds specularity. So here we go, A, B, C. So this is the way we would have this in the room. Let's go a little bit wider so we could see all those lights. There we go, right? So A, B, C, D, but just extrapolate it out. So I'm going to grab my STE3 Speedlight transmitter. I would have this on one camera body with the 70 to 200, and then I would have another EL1 on my medium zoom. So this photograph was taken using 600s at the time. This was pre-EL1s, but it's the same concept. And usually for the procession, recession, I just beautiful light. I don't want to overlight the scene. I want to complement the scene. For faster recycle time, I've learned to have the off-camera speed lights in manual mode because sometimes this flash way off in the corner, which is the furthest away from me where I'm photographing on the aisle, at the given aperture of f4 might feel that it needs to give full power and dump. And then the next frame, it won't fire, but the other two will. So for consistency's sake, I know at ISO 1600, aperture 4, 1/125th of a second, that underexposes my ambient light by 1.5 to 2 stops. That creates the separation between the background and what we're lighting. It gives that sense of depth and dimension. So I'm locked in. So the on-camera, for this one we had an on-camera active, that was in ETTL, Group A, right? Everything is dialed in. I was using a 24 to 70 2.8 lens, version 2 at 47 millimeters. But you can see I could fire these lights and they fire in succession, meaning B, C, D. Do that again. Awesome, right? So the triangle of light stays in position. We're filtered, we're matching everything. Now at any point in time, we could change this up. So let's go to an overall of the scene. And let me know if you guys have any questions while we're populating. Let's see, Michael Wicker, do you get shadows with the triangle of light? Yes, you get shadows, but I like shadows. And if you feel that your shadows are too strong, well then you adjust your lights accordingly. Maybe if you're getting too much cross shadowing, lower the flash output of that group and maybe increase the fill of your on-camera access speed light. I hope that makes sense. So it's just like 3-point portrait lighting, but exploded. So here's an overall view of the Standard Club, and this is a remote camera. Nico, here we go, talking about remote cameras. This is actually me right here behind the couple during the first dance. As I take a photograph, it's firing the remote 1DX with the 16 to 35 via a Pocket Wizard. So I have a Pocket Wizard into the PC, sync out of my primary camera, which then fires the remote camera. Now this remote camera is not on flashes because we would need a second set of lights for that because my primary camera is tied into the triangle of light. But this shows where the lights are and how big this room is. So again, we're tungsten color temperature. 1250 ISO for this camera, it's 1/6 of a second at aperture 6.3. You know, at 18 millimeters, I'm in focus from the head table to the band in the entire area. And in black and white, this photograph looks so timeless to me. I get a lot of inspiration for my lighting from old movies. All right. So you could see, here's one light, and it's right by the speakers of the band. Here's the C light, again, by the speakers of the band. And the D light, in the standard club, they have actually a technical loft. So I mounted the D light up in the technical loft. And that's where the Platypod comes in handy, is you can mount this on anything with the strap. Or if you're using a light stand, I use the Westcott H2 Pro water bags. So I travel with enough gear, heavyweight gear, to the venue. I just fill up the water bags when I get there, and then I weight down the light stands for safety. So we good here. Any questions on the overall layout? So you could see through the power of the ISO, 3 little Speedlites could give an amazing quality of light. Jensen, you love the triangle of light. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What's the general power level I use for the triangle of light with Speedlites in manual? I'm sure it depends on the ambient light, but do you have an idea of what the power level will be for normal settings? Yes. My starting point, here, let me switch cameras really quick. So my starting point, this is kind of like my baseline where I'll just walk into a room cold. If it's someplace I'm not familiar, I'll start off at 1600 ISO. All 3 lights in 1/8 power. Usually I'm between aperture 4 and aperture 5, never above 5.6 on the dance floor. I just don't need it, right? Remember, the smaller the aperture, the smaller the hole, right? The more light it takes to illuminate it. So we need more flash output. The other way around that is raise your ISO. But I rarely want to go above 2500 ISO. There's no need to, right? So I start off at 1/25 of a second, usually around 4, 1600, all the lights at 1/8 power, and then I adjust. Usually the D light in the back of the room, I have to bump up to 1/4 power because it's the furthest away from all the action, at least in the big event spaces that I'm in. Let me pull up some photos here. I'm going to open up photos. I just recently went to a site check, and I'm going to share this desktop with you. So in preparing for coming settings, I went to a walkthrough, and I did a site check. So I'm going to start, and I'll go through these photos and give you an idea. Okay, this is where a wedding is going to be that's coming up, one of our first weddings. And this space is going to be tented, right? All around here will be tented, covered in case there's bad weather. So for the ceremony portion, I will have 2 lights underneath that tent just for fill, even though we're in daylight. Okay, so we're going to walk through this. They're also thinking about we're going to be doing 4 weddings in a row here. Because of COVID and restrictions, this counts as an outdoor space, so we could have normal numbers up in the 200s, 250. So again, if they tent this, which they're talking about, sides open, 12 foot tall, so it doesn't obstruct any of the views, I'm going to use the triangle of light just to add that kiss of light in their eye, fill in the shadows. Yes, we can photograph in ambient light. 2 things will happen. If we do ambient light in a scene like this, and we expose for their faces underneath the tent, all of this light in the background, blue sky, skyline, all that stuff is going to go away. We'll lose it. But by adding a kiss of light, we can now balance the ambient light. Even if we have to go into high-speed sync and shooting at 2.835, the triangle of light is going to work great. So let's keep walking through these photos. Right, these views are important. That's why they're going to use this outside space. This will all be lounge furniture for the reception in the evening, and they have this inside space, which is all glass, in here, should it rain or whatever. This will be the plan B. Again, the sides will open up so they can keep their numbers high. So I would just move my 3 lights into this room. Right? Here would be the front of the room. So I would have, hope you can see my mouse, I would have the B light, camera left, C light, camera right, D light way in the back, and I would zoom in that flash head maybe to 105 so it would carry further without using up so much energy. And I came here also to test how much radio frequency interference there is in this space. It's a brand new venue. We're going to be doing one of the first events there. So I want to know how much RF there is. Do I need a backup plan? And then, of course, I went around just, testing and checking spots. I went into where the couples are going to be getting ready. They're going to put a room divider. The brides are going to get ready on this side, guys on the other side. Yes, we do have window light, but it's very directional. And as we all know, window light, the light falls off rapidly. If we don't want that rapid fall off, and we open it up, then the background blows out, which is cool too. But our style is more editorial. We want to have the lights in there. So here, look at this. I took a screenshot of my phone. Look at all this public Wi-Fi going on. This is the kind of stuff we need to know. Go in the night before, check how much Wi-Fi there is, because all of the radio transmitting Speedlites, flashes, everything we do now is on 2.4 gigahertz, which is Wi-Fi. So I do carry the backup Pocket Wizards, and I do carry a backup radio popper, which are in the 900 megahertz range. Once in a blue moon, I have to go to that because there's too much traffic on the 2.4 gigahertz, but I'm prepared. Here we go. I'm hitting the scan on the STE3 Speedlite transmitter. This scan feature is invaluable because it's going to tell me what is the strongest possible channel to use. So as you can see, kind of like a bell curve, peaks and valleys. Usually channel 15 works everywhere with minimal interference. And so if we have multiple photographers, we just put our own pin number in and we could all be on channel 15 and we will not fire each other's lights. I also wanted to test the Westcott Fj400 because I use these now for my portraits because they speak Canon RT. For me, I've tested a lot of strobes, and the bang for the buck and the quality out of this Fj400, and yes, I am a Westcott Top Pro Elite, I'm going to use the right tool for the job, right? So if ProPhoto is better, I would use ProPhoto. I got to use the right tool that's going to work for me. What I like is this falls into the whole family of lighting, so everything is cohesive. It's the same interface, does high-speed sync, off-camera rear curtain sync, which Canons now do. So it falls right in there. It just adds it into the group, but with a punch of 400 watt seconds. Westcott also has a 200 watt second FJ200 and the FJ80, and they all play nice together. So I was testing it in this environment to make sure that it would remain connected, and it did. So I actually did a little video here, just so I know. I walked around the room and I'm firing the lights, and you could see I got pretty far away from the strobe and it kept on firing, right? Look up in the ceiling, there are Wi-Fi boxes up there, so all that Wi-Fi traffic we saw, these are things I need to be prepared about, right? All right, so let's jump out of that and get back over to the photos. And let me check and see. I heard it pop in. Do we have some questions? Pam Bell, like those little flash stands. Yeah, the Ultras are really cool. Awesome venue. Thank you, thank you. Does the Fj400 connect easily to the Canon STE3? All right, Michael, you're asking that question. I've got the answer. So let's take this is an Fj400. We're going to power it up, right? So I'm turning it on. When it first powers up, it's in default Canon, or just all. So it would work universally with a Canon, Nikon, Sony, Olympus, Lumix, all of those with the FJ transmitter. But if I go into Menu 2 and I activate IDRT, I know it's kind of hard to see because of exposure, but I activate that. There's my pin number 1, It's in group E, and I could put it in any group I want, but these are B, C, D. My on camera would be A. I come over here to the, I'll grab the STE3 Speedlite transmitter. I'm going to boot that guy up, and you can see there is E. This is in group E. Okay, watch your eyes. We fire it, and everything's firing, right? Wickedly cool. So I could go to group E, and we're going to go mode, and we're going to go manual. We'll go full power. Why not? Right? Hold on to your horses. Here we go. Boom! Full power. See, it went to level 9. Okay? Now we could go to E and say, okay, I only need a kiss of power from you. Let's go down to a 16th power. Trip that light, and then it drops down. 16th power is equal to level 5. So yes, it does play nice. The only limitation is while the Westcott does have a modeling light, there we go. We cannot activate or deactivate that from a Canon remote because it currently does not have remote activation in it for it. But if you were using the Westcott Speedlite transmitter, the FJX2M, which works in Canon mode, not Canon RT, you'd be able to turn the modeling light on and off in Canon mode. Same thing, if you are using the FJX2M in Canon RT mode, again, it goes back to Canon default where we cannot access remote control of the modeling light. But long way to answer your question, yes, it does fit right in. And it connects up that way when I do step and repeats, red carpet events, things like that. I use my on-camera Speedlite for fill, on-camera access for fill, and then I'd use the Fj400 off-camera with my favorite portable go-to light modifier, and that's the Rapid Box Large. And again, I like things that travel fast. If you have the orb, I love the orb, but this is pretty versatile. I could set it up quickly. We got inner diffusion baffles, outer diffusion, grid. It just gives tons of versatility, right? And we can mount that in there. And with the switch ring, we could also use a Speedlite ring if we wanted, but since we have the Fj400, I'll just use that. And this is my go-to on location for portraits. So speaking of portraits, let's go to some portraits. I think that's next. It is. All right. The family portraits. While we all love doing the photojournalism, the cinematic moments, all those sets of things, these are the photos that last a lifetime. These are the photos that you can't mess up. You know, when I've coached a lot of photographers, they're like, I really don't want to do the family dreaded portraits. You know, you could kind of be forgiven to mess up other things. You will not be forgiven if you mess these up. They are so crucial. And really, you need to nail everything. Weddings are not something to do just for some extra money. If you could photograph weddings really, really well, there isn't anything I believe you cannot photograph. Because we have to think fast, we have to be mobile, we have to bring quality, and the day is moving extremely, extremely fast. Hey, Troy Woods! Jackie Armstrong, how you guys doing? You guys in there? I see Troy, welcome. So let's talk about this, right? This is one strobe, Fj400, in the Rapid Box. Yes, we have everything with a full CTO. Now when I'm doing portraits, meaning the subjects aren't moving around, I'm not moving around, we lock everything down manual for consistency. I use 2 Canon Speedlites in 1/8 power in Westcott strip boxes, 1x4 strip boxes, 1x3s, with a grid. That gives us this nice side separation. So let me zoom in, wrong way, there we go. So if you zoom in, look at that nice hair light on the bride, the separation on the side of everybody's face. Those are from these separation lights. It feels congruent. I liked so that when the people look at the photograph, they think, oh, that's the light coming in from the window. But it's really not. You know, this is a dark, dark room. I had to kneel down to make sure I didn't get my reflection in the mirror, and I had to feather the main light. But because this is one big, large light modifier, and it's just off to the side of the camera, we're not getting any cross shadows. Now, I do have a Speedlite handy should I need some on-camera access fill, meaning if the shadows are too heavy here and I don't want to run and get a second light for over here, just put your on-camera Speedlite, dial it down maybe -2, or in this case, if it's manual, give it a 16th power, and it's going to fill in these shadows beautifully. But in this instance, I didn't need that. Again, it's a warm-toned room, so we're back to tungsten. The overall tone of the room is tungsten, right? I set my exposure so that these windows were not blown out. We have some nice detail, but bright enough to feel like this highlight on the side of them is all from the windows. I want it to feel very natural, as if you were seeing it with your naked eye. So, questions there? All good? Moving along? We'll flip the photo. Cool. Dramatic portraits. I love this when we get to do the first look and the photo walk. This was at the Four Seasons Hotel in Chicago. They have this grand staircase. You know, kind of if you can, get to the venue a little bit early, day before, night before, something like that, so that you could do a walkthrough and check it out and get inspired. So you're not trying to figure that all out when it's like, go time, be creative, right? So we knew we wanted to do some photographs on these stairs, so I chose to go with kind of a Hollywood style lighting. So I used, not the Sphere, but the MagBeam. So it's an extended beam with a nice Fresnel lens, which gives us this beautiful round circular light. And it's essentially a spotlight. So it's a 600 EXRT and it's very precise. So it creates this nice natural vignette. There is no post-production vignette on this photograph. That's the lighting. Same thing, we decide how much ambient light do we want to play in the scene. So in this instance, I'm hand holding this, we're moving fast, I'm hanging over a railing, I don't want to shake, so I'm at 100th of a second. That means I had to go to 2500 ISO to get some ambient light detail at aperture 5.6. So the Canon 11-24 is an f4 lens. I wanted to go one stop in. That's aperture 5.6. And then manual mode on the light, we just dialed the power in until we got the exposure we like. So in this instance, find your ambient light, it's 2 stops less than the exposure for the flash. Cool beans. Outside lighting. This is not the triangle of light, but it is 2 off-camera flashes. It's a combination of an Fj400 with a full CTO with the deep reflector across the pond, because this was a flat overcast day, thereby I can create the specularity and the reflection in the pond. To feel that congruency all the way through, like at sunset light, I put another off-camera flash over here with the same CTO gel and the MagBeam. So it's a very narrow beam of light because the sunsets is a small light source. So thereby it is a hard light source. So this is what we do to mimic that. Again, separation, meaning the ambient light exposure is not equal to the flash exposure. If they are, your light will be flat. So I underexpose the ambient light in this instance by about 1.5 stops. Right, so 200 ISO, 1/60th of a second, aperture 5.6, 70 to 200 millimeter lens at 123 focal length. Used the STE3 in groups. Boom. This was a 1/4 power. This was an 1/8 power. What's really nice about the new EL1s is it has a feature called flash exposure memory on the sender unit. So I could take one frame in ETTL, hit flash exposure memory, and it's going to tell my groups, even the Fj400, to go manual and tell me exactly what that flash output was. So then I lock it in. Again, they're not moving. My distance to them is not moving. So lock it in. Engagement session. This is a vertical. I know it makes it a little challenging. You're going to have to turn your monitor sideways. But this is just one Fj400 on an engagement session to add some specularity and fill into the shadows. With the deep reflector, that allows me to get the light far enough away from the scene and mimic the sunlight, right? Because the light was coming from behind them and I wasn't getting any wrap on her face. We found this cool red scooter. It was just sitting outside this store. I said, hey, go jump on it really quick. I was able to position the light so it lit Dana and it bounced onto Ben. Very cool, very quick. Little creative lighting, right? So you can have fun. I love working with gels. Here I was getting really creative, just photographing in a boxing ring. And I was testing out some lighting using actually the 1DX Mark III when it first came out. So I didn't want any ambient light, so I maxed out the shutter speed, 200th of a second, aperture 7.1, lots of depth of field, and then I just gelled it. So this is daylight, no gels at all, but I'm using color temperature 2800 degrees. So daylight is going to be rendered blue. Then I double gelled 2 full correct to orange gels on my main light in a strip, Westcott strip box with the grids to keep the light confined right onto the subject. All right, folks, I hope that was helpful. Get out there, practice. Remember, if you need any help with anything, workflow, shooting, lighting, camera setups, Dawn and I are available for one-on-one, for consulting, for small groups. If you're interested in us helping you getting up to speed and dialed in and ready to go for your season, hit us up, direct message us. I'll put our email, my email, in the notes, and we will go from there. I'll also list in the notes the products that I used. So the Platypod Ultras, the Mag Spheres, the Fj400, and whatnot. So thanks again. Have a great evening. Pam, I hope you're really enjoying that EOS R5. Pam's got her foot in 2 worlds. She's an old Nikon user, and she's messing around with Canon due to the advances in mirrorless and the face tracking and all those good things. All right, folks, thank you. Have a great evening. Be well.